Tripper, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Steve, great to be with you. It was great to hear you back on the air doing some basketball with the fans last night.
Wasn't it great to be back in there last night? I mean, to hear Jeff Brown on the PA and just to have fans. Boy, the student turnout was phenomenal last night.
I've seen that across the board this year, too. I've done some PA announcing at soccer, and the crowd, they filled the whole bottom of the bleachers on the side opposite the press box at Jeffrey Field this year. I think there's so many people just so excited to have an opportunity to go back out and do stuff again. Not that the support here hasn't always been great, but you really feel like everyone's rejuvenated by it, and you have a sense of gratitude for having the opportunity to go back. You don't take anything for granted anymore.
No, they don't, and I think that's been great because now, I'll get to the hockey component of that, because the Roar Zone, which has always been great to begin with, I feel like there's just more juice in there now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think so many people are so excited to get back there and talk about a series to get juiced up for. You don't need anything extra on the line with number 2 Michigan coming to town. But I agree. I just think the students are so passionate, so invested. And it's not just the students. The community support at Pagula has always been really, really good. They've bought into the program. But the students have been awesome this year, and it's across the board, especially with hockey, too.
They got 8:30 tonight with Michigan, then 7 o'clock coming up tomorrow. So that's how it'll play out at Pagula this weekend. I feel like Penn State comes in with a better knowledge of who Penn State is right now. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. Obviously, they went down 2 weeks ago to Nashville and had the big win against North Dakota.
Yes.
And then on the road, they were swept last weekend by Ohio State. But Penn State led in each of those games in the first period. And it's not that they played poorly, Steve. It was like a stretch of 10, 12 minutes, late second, early third period in both games that flipped it. And the thing they did really well against North Dakota, if North Dakota had a response, Penn State always, figuratively, punched. In that series against Ohio State responded, and Penn State never was able to punch back. So they didn't handle that adversity a little bit. But with a young team, it's a really good experience. I think they're going to continue to grow as the year goes on. And as you know, sometimes you have to go through those experiences, good, bad, ugly, maybe, and you become a better team. I think that was really played poorly. But how do you handle those stretches when it doesn't go your way? And in the Big Ten, it's a little bit different. Even though you're playing in North Dakota in front of their fans in Nashville, once you get to the Big Ten, you have to be ready to handle that situation.
Yeah, once you get punched, you have to have the ability to counterpunch. And sometimes it's not that you can't. In other words, you counterpunch, and then doggone it, they do it again, then yet you're forced to counterpunch again. And that's, if you have the ability to do that a second or a third time, then you've got something. But sometimes it's very difficult to do that second and third time.
Yeah, and I think also having, as a younger team, having the ability to add on to a lead, whether it's basketball, football, hockey, whatever sport we want to talk about, they had a 1-0 lead, had some opportunities on special teams on the power play, hit a couple of posts, 5-on-5, 4-on-4, whatever it may be. They had an opportunity to add to their lead, and if you can take that one, I felt in both games, if you take that one, make it two, it's a completely different component to that hockey game. Because even then, if it's a quote-unquote bad goal, or any times in hockey, the guy always talks about there's rubber pucks, referees, and goaltenders, right? Anything could happen in a hockey game. If you can take that one and make it two, I think they would have been in really good shape and had an opportunity to win both those games. So even though the final score doesn't look good overall for Penn State on the weekend, I still think there's a lot of good things to take out of it, and then you learn from those other opportunities where things didn't go your way.
How's Guy felt about his special team so far?
Yeah, I think he's pretty happy with where the penalty kill is at, especially. Probably taking too many penalties for his liking. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. He doesn't want to see so much of that special teams. And the power play, they're still trying to find their groove. I think they've done a lot of good things on the power play, but I noticed in the last home series against Niagara, and even the North Dakota series, or the one game, they were really, really good on the power play. But when you have a team that wants it so bad, you just still need to stay simple with your attack. You don't need to make the cute play at the blue line. You don't just dump it in, get the puck, and then you get set up and go to work. And going against Michigan, I think whether it's on special teams or 5-on-5, look, they can dazzle you with their 7 first-round draft picks. They can dazzle you with their ability to move the puck and their skill. But how do you make a team like that uncomfortable? Dump pucks in, win battles, retrieve pucks, and keep your game simple. If you try to make the cute play and the flashy play to show that, hey, look, I can do that too, that's where you're going to get in trouble. But if they play their game and get to the net and get dirty goals and win pucks out of the corner, I think that's how you make a Michigan team that wants to show how skilled they are. I think that's how you make them uncomfortable by putting them in those situations, whether it's special teams or 5-on-5, whatever it may be.
Has Guy made any subtle changes, like a line change with somebody, maybe move somebody, maybe to change the defense combination, or has he been pretty settled with what he wants?
They've been pretty settled on the top, what you would call their quote-unquote top line with Ben Copeland,
right,
Kevin Wall, and Connor McMenamin. I think they've played really well together and have had great synergy. In the line of Ryan Kerwin, Chase McLean, and Danny Geniev's had really good synergy from day number one. But they're still tinkering a little bit with those other groups. So they were able to get Connor McEachran with Christian Sarlo, and Tyler Gratton had a really strong start to the year. And I think they see him as a guy who always plays with high energy. So to put him with McEachran, who's scoring a lot of goals for them now, he's always had a great shot. It's just a matter of taking that shot. I think that's one of the small things he's done. He's put Gratton with Sarlo and McEachran to try to get them going. And then you do have the luxury of having 5 guys that you can trust as a centerman. So whether it's Carson Dick in the lineup or you can make Ben Schoen was playing on the wing, they've shifted him and he can play some center for them too. Again, it's not a major change, but just a little tweak here or there. Just try to get that right puzzle pieces together out there for the lines. And their defense, honestly, they've been pretty limited in what they can do because of the bodies and personnel they have available back there. So they haven't really changed a whole lot on D.
What has Michigan's depth meant that they can run a third line out, and a lot of schools would love that to be their top line?
Yeah, and you know what? It's not just those guys that are going to get all the headlines as their first-round draft picks. They have a guy like a Luke Morgan, Jimmy Lambert, Michael Pastioff. As gifted as they are, they're still a really, really, not only when you look at freshman, sophomore young, I'm talking 18, 19-year-old young compared to, I think coming into this, their average age is 21 and a half years old. Penn State's 22 and a half years old.
Right.
That's a pretty big difference. But when you have guys who have been through the college hockey grind before, have been through the Big Ten, to have those experienced bodies, not to mention still very skilled players, that you can trot out on a third and fourth line to complement your full complement of first round, whether it's Matty Beniers, Ken Johnson, Brisson. They have so many guys. But I really like their depth pieces. Their captain, a defenseman, Nick Blankenberg. I think he's just really, really solid. So when you pair him with Owen Power, then it really gels for them. So I think that depth, that's a great, great observation. And it's not just because they have talent up and down the lineup, but they have a little bit more veteran savvy there too, and that makes them good.
Yeah, and and look, their goaltending is good. I mean, that Michigan almost
6'6", you don't have to move.
I mean, Mike, it's just he's just so large. I mean, and not only that, but I mean, because if he comes out and cuts an angle, right, the angle includes him sticking a foot out. For goodness sakes, I mean, it's like you got to be kidding me.
It's really good for college hockey.
Whatever happened to Gump Worsley where you're 5'8"?
I'll say this too. The team they have, though, it is really, and I'm not saying that they're the favorites to win the national championship. I think there's multiple different ways to build a team.
Yeah.
But any team that has 4 of the top 5 NHL draft picks on from this past year in the first round, 4 of the top 5, that's good for the sport. It's going to get college hockey a lot of attention. It proves that going to college, and there's already 33% of the players in the NHL are college hockey players, but it proves that this is a very viable path to go to the National Hockey League. So I think what they have, and it doesn't guarantee they're going to win anything, not even the conference, but what they have is a really good thing for the sport.
Let me give you 2 observations about this. I think that we are seeing a college football season where there's more, quote, parity. You look at last weekend with Alabama had to fight to win, Ohio State had to fight to win, Oregon did. Because of COVID, more players came back, and college football's older this season. Mm-hmm. I think in college basketball we're about to see the same thing because guess what? The players are older this season. That's one of the advantages I think hockey has had for a long time because college hockey has always been an older sport to begin with.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's been the delicate balance for some of these Big Ten teams. When you look at the compilation of players, whether it's Wisconsin the last 2-3 years, Cole Caulfield, Dylan Holloway, Keandre Miller, Minnesota over the years, sure, if you're getting these blue chip talents who either come right from the national team development program at 18, or Sammy Walker, he came right out of high school. And then they're facing a freshman who's played junior hockey for 2 or 3 years after his high school career or a prep career somewhere else. Just because this is the most, quote-unquote, skilled guy, there's a big difference between Quinn Hughes at 17 and a 23-year-old defenseman. And that's why I think you need a combination of that is probably the most successful. That's how Minnesota Duluth has built most of their championship teams. I think UMass did a really good job of that last year, of having a nice mix. But I think everyone has a different approach. And are you really going to turn to, if you can have 4 of the top 5 picks in the NHL drafts on your team, what are you going to say? Hey, well, we don't want you. It's like, it's a very interesting, it's like an exercise in team building that makes it fascinating. And college hockey, as you said, has always been a study in that, but I think it's amplified even more now.
Right. I have to ask you now on football. You're down there in that sideline all the time. What's your observation watching Penn State play Saturday at Maryland?
Yeah, I thought in the beginning of the game, to be honest, I know we talked about it on the broadcast a little bit, and I'm not sure what it was. It just, there was a little bit of juice lacking, but once they were able to sense that, they got that confidence going, that's when the sideline, that's when they took off. And it all started with who else but number 5, right? He was unbelievable in that game.
Yes.
But once they started to get that confidence, then it took off for him on Saturday.
When you're over there in the sideline, what kind of command does Sean Clifford have, even on that part of the field, when they're on the sideline?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the guy that everyone, and it's interesting because there will be times where he's very vocal and will go up and down the bench and talk to the receivers, running backs, linemen, or if he sees something, he'll specify to a guy and pull a guy over. But there are other times where he'll just go and find his spot, but you see players gravitate towards him.
Yes.
They come over, they want to interact with him, they want to pick his brain, and I think the dynamic between him and Mike Yurcich is really, really strong. They know Mike knows when to push Sean Clifford a little bit more, and he also knows when to back off Sean Clifford a little bit more. I think they have a really strong relationship. So it starts with them, but you can see the way players will gravitate towards him, and anything that they want to run by, there's such a command of the offense for him, which is impressive in the first year of another new system, that he's an extension of his coach where they can go right to him as a leader to get on the same page and design what they want to do out there on the field.
Well, anybody knows who goes to the pregame show. You and Jack are the one that shows up with the notes. So when you look at Michigan, so when you look at Michigan, what are your notes telling you about Michigan?
The same thing your head's telling you. What do you have stored up in that noggin? I think they're an excellent team.
It is a sad state of affairs upstairs, I can tell you that.
They're an excellent running team. And it'd be interesting to see if Corum can go, because that gives them another dynamic weapon, because they can use it in the passing game too. But they're both pretty explosive. Even Haskins, for a guy his size with the power he runs with, and they can get downhill. And then I think the other big matchup is how does Penn State protect Sean Clifford with Hutchinson and Ojabo coming off the end. Those are probably the two biggest things. And Ross, their linebacker, is really, really good.
Yeah, this is a game to me that's about schedule. No, it's can Penn State stay on its schedule, or can Penn State defensively throw Michigan off schedule?
Yep.
And I think
that's most emblematic by them in the red zone, too. 25 touchdowns, I think, in the red zone. 19 are on the ground, 6 through the air. So if you can get them into a 3rd 8, 3rd and 10 in the red zone, like if they're going to run the ball and go down the field, they still got to get in. As where Penn State's been really strong, you hold them to field goals. I think that's a win for you.
Yeah, 17 times Michigan's had to settle for a field goal in the red zone. Now, Moody, to his credit, Jake is 17-17. The one that makes me laugh is the Michigan State one, where it's the end of the half and Mel Tucker has all 3 timeouts remaining. So they run out Moody. Moody comes out right before the snap. Mel calls a timeout. Moody kicks it. It's good. Right? They line up again. Moody's there right before the snap. Mel calls the timeout. Moody kicks it, goes right through the middle. Right? Third time up. Mel calls the timeout right before the snap. Moody kicks it, goes through the upright. It's good. So the fourth time is the one that's actually real. He kicked it down the middle again. He went 4 for 4 in one kicking sequence. Like, this guy can't miss.
And they obviously, in that Michigan State game, they showed the ability to be explosive in the passing game.
Yeah.
But watching the Indiana game, they struggled throwing the football to the point where McCarthy, it wasn't just garbage time reps.
Right.
They like his athleticism back there.
Yeah.
You wonder how things go. And look, they'll run a 6 offensive lineman and tight end set out there, too.
Right.
They can run a lot of different formations. So I think if you're Penn State, it's identifying what personnel they have in the game and being able to, again, get them off schedule, like you said.
All right, 8:30 tonight, 7 o'clock tomorrow. 8:30 tonight, 7 o'clock tomorrow at Pagula. Then Brian joins us on the sideline Saturday at 10:30. Noon will be the kickoff. And then Brian and I get on the plane and go to UMass on Sunday night for the game on Monday.
A lot of time with my best bud.
Oh, really? Who else is going on the trip? Sure.
There's one in every crowd.
Every crowd. Hey, I'm back.
I'll bring you the notes for you. I'll bring your notes.
Good. I'm back at 7 o'clock. Don't forget to tip your waitress. All right. Thanks, Tripper.
See you, bud.
You're the best, man. Yeah, bud.
You too. You are.
See ya.